Welcome to the Roy Morgan Weekly Update. This week we have the latest on mortgage stress, a record 1.5 million at risk of mortgage stress and still increasing. And also some interesting new research on AI conducted in conjunction with the Campaign for AI Safety. But firstly, the key weekly indicators show some improvement. The latest Roy Morgan poll shows ALP support up 0.5% to 53.5%, compared to the Coalition on 46.5% on a two-party preferred basis. Government confidence recovered this week, up 8 points to 84.5. And consumer confidence was also up 2.3 points to 78.1, continuing the kind of up and down pattern we've seen over the last 6 weeks. Consumer confidence has averaged 76.8 since mid-July. Of more concern, though, is the longer-term performance of the index. ANZ Roy Morgan Consumer Confidence has now spent a record 6 months, or 26 weeks, below the mark of 80, alarmingly deep in recessionary risk territory. And the June quarter GDP figures to be released next week are widely expected to show low or even no growth in the quarter. Inflation expectations were down 0.3% this week, so Australians are now expecting annual inflation to be 5.2% over the next 2 years. This is the equal lowest inflation expectation since mid-May. And next, we look at the pressing issue for many Australians of mortgage stress. Roy Morgan is the only company that measures mortgage stress every month, and the latest Roy Morgan mortgage stress figures are out for July 2023. We find 29.2% of all mortgage holders are now at risk. This figure equates to an estimated, as I said earlier, 1.5 million mortgage holders at risk of mortgage stress, a new record high. Now, if you're looking at the chart and see 35.6% of mortgage holders at risk during the GFC or the global financial crisis, and only 29.2% now, the record number of people now is because there's now a much larger pool of Australians with mortgages. In addition, and most concerningly, over 1 in 5 mortgage holders are now extremely at risk, meaning they wouldn't even be able to fund the interest component of their debt. That's 20.3% of all mortgage holders. It's equivalent to over 1,017,000 mortgage holders, and it's the highest figure for those extremely at risk for 15 years since July 2008. Now, these figures are worrying enough, but if the Reserve Bank lifts interest rates next week, perhaps due to concerns about the low Australian dollar that's now under 65 US cents, these numbers will continue to increase. Roy Morgan, as well as measuring, also forecasts the level of mortgage stress in the months ahead based on projected interest rate increases. And although we don't expect the RBA to increase interest rates again necessarily, if they did increase interest rates to 4.35%, this would increase the number of mortgage holders at risk of mortgage stress by 77,000 to 1.577 million. Next week's meeting is current Governor Phil Lowe's last before he's replaced by Michelle Bullock. And finally today, as promised, turning to a special Roy Morgan survey conducted in conjunction with the Campaign for AI Safety. Roy Morgan surveyed over 1,400 Australians aged 16 plus in August to ask them their thoughts on AI, and particularly whether artificial intelligence creates more problems than it solves or solves more problems than it creates, and whether AI represents a risk of human extinction in the next 2 decades. Well, a clear majority of Australians, 57%, agree that AI creates more problems than it solves. And when it came to the existential question of the potential extinction of the human race, while a large majority, 80%, don't think it will, 1 in 5 Australians, or 20%, believe AI does present a risk of human extinction in the next 2 decades. That's extraordinary. Job losses are the leading problem identified by Australians. 15% were concerned that AI would create job losses, followed by the need for regulation, 13%, and that AI is open to misuse, 11%. And of course, the unknown consequences, 10%. Some of the comments that these respondents made who were concerned about AI said AI will create unemployment and further stupefy the population. It creates more excuses to stop funding our education system and takes away jobs from those who've built their skills around writing. The technology has sped ahead of our thinking with regards to ethics, plagiarism, creativity and jobs. We also asked those who were more positive about AI, and over a quarter said AI is for the betterment of society, followed by AI is beneficial if used correctly, and the pros outweigh the cons in general, and regulation can reduce problems. Some of the things they said in their own words include, it'll be useful for solutions to all sorts of problems that we haven't solved yet. It can aid us, and we should be cautious but not scared of the future. Phone apps to encourage medicine adherence in remote areas would be fantastic, and there are many positive uses of AI. As a human race, we thrive and grow on innovation and progress. I believe if used with controls, AI can be extremely beneficial. For further details on this increasingly relevant and interesting research, be sure to visit the Roy Morgan website. And that's a wrap for this week. Subscribe to our Roy Morgan YouTube channel. It's free for all the latest political, economic and market research data and insights. Thanks for listening today. Take care, and I look forward to seeing you next week.